In the theater of modern mechanized warfare, logistics dictates destiny. For nearly 2 years, the Crimean Peninsula has served as Vladimir Putin's ultimate unsinkable aircraft carrier, a massive logistical hub fueling Russia's southern occupation forces. But today, that fortress is bleeding. Ukraine has quietly initiated Phase 2 of its southern strategy, a methodical asymmetric operation designed to achieve what many Western analysts deemed impossible: the complete isolation and ultimate liberation of Crimea through a multi-domain ground assault. To understand the gravity of the current situation, we must look at the physical terrain. Crimea is not easily accessible. It is connected to mainland Ukraine by a few narrow corridors, primarily the Perekop Isthmus and the Chongar Strait. To the east lies the Kerch Strait Bridge, Putin's multi-billion-dollar vanity project and the crown jewel of Russian logistics. Right now, Ukrainian armed forces have established unprecedented fire control over almost every single land bridge and artery connecting Crimea to the southern front lines. The strategic bridges at Chongar and Armyansk have been repeatedly pounded by long-range precision munitions. In response, the Russian Engineering Corps attempted a textbook tactical fix, constructing alternative pontoon crossings. However, in the face of Ukraine's relentless overlapping intelligence network, these makeshift bridges have become nothing more than static target practice. Russian military convoys are being targeted and rendered combat ineffective before they can even deploy their assets to the southern front. What is driving this tactical paralysis? The answer lies in Ukraine's adoption of ultra-low-cost, high-precision attrition. First-person view FPV kamikaze drones operating in autonomous or semi-autonomous swarms have systematically hunted Russian transport vehicles. When we look at the cost-to-benefit ratio, the math is devastating for the Kremlin. A $300 Ukrainian drone is systematically neutralizing a multi-million-dollar logistics network. This shift in the operational landscape is not accidental. It is the execution of a deliberate doctrine spearheaded by two critical figures in Ukraine's military hierarchy: Mikhailo Fedorov, the Minister of Digital Transformation, and Robert Brovdy, widely known as Magyar, the commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces. Fedorov has been public about this objective, stating unequivocally that Crimea is being isolated step by step. According to his office's field intelligence, Ukraine has entered the terminal phase of severing Crimea's external supply lines. In the lexicon of military doctrine, this is known as shaping the battlefield, denying the enemy the ability to reinforce or resupply before the main hammer blow falls. Simultaneously, Commander Magyar's drone units have expanded their target list. It is no longer just about stopping trucks on a highway. They are hunting the Kremlin's untouchable assets deep inside the peninsula: fuel depots, electrical substations, maintenance docks, and command and control nodes. Geography dictates that any ground offensive must navigate highly restrictive choke points. The primary axis of a potential Ukrainian breakthrough is projected to originate from the Zaporizhzhia front, pushing directly through the heavily contested Tokmak and Melitopol lines toward the coast of the Azov Sea. This route requires breaching the notorious Surovikin Line, a dense network of multi-layered minefields, anti-tank ditches, and dragon's teeth. If Ukrainian armored columns can fracture this line and reach the coast, they will permanently split Russia's southern forces in two, severing the land bridge once and for all. Once the land bridge is broken, the focus shifts directly to the Perekop Isthmus. Measuring only 5 to 7 kilometers wide, this narrow strip of land is a defender's dream and an attacker's nightmare. Historically, entering Crimea through Perekop has cost tens of thousands of lives in conflicts ranging from the Russian Civil War to World War II. A static defender can rain concentrated artillery on this bottleneck. However, a modern defending force that is starved of ammunition, blind due to radar destruction, and under constant aerial surveillance loses that defensive edge. To complicate Russian defensive planning, Ukraine is unlikely to rely on a single predictable axis of advance. The Sivash Sea, often called the Rotten Sea, is a massive system of shallow lagoons and mudflats bordering northern Crimea. Russian planners have historically treated the Sivash as a permanent natural barrier, leaving its flanks lightly defended. A successful ground assault cannot occur in a vacuum. It requires air and maritime supremacy, or at the very least, the total neutralization of the enemy's sea and air power. Historically, the Russian Black Sea Fleet was the dominant force in these waters. Today, it is in full retreat. Ukraine, a nation without a functional conventional navy, has revolutionized maritime warfare through the deployment of unmanned surface vessels, USVs. Autonomous naval strike drones like the Megara 5 and the Sea Baby have hunted Russian surface combatants with terrifying efficiency. Guided missile corvettes, frigates, and critical landing ships have been sent to the bottom, the Black Sea, or heavily damaged. These operations have forced the Russian command to make a humiliating strategic calculation, withdrawing the remnants of the Black Sea Fleet from its historic base in Sevastopol, Crimea, eastward to Novorossiysk on the Russian mainland. By forcing the fleet to flee, Ukraine has effectively eliminated the threat of naval gunfire support along Crimea's western coast and disrupted the amphibious resupply capability that Russia relied on to bypass the damaged bridges. Simultaneously, the air defense bubble over Crimea, once considered an ironclad anti-access/area denial A2/AD zone, is collapsing. Throughout the first half of 2026, Ukraine has conducted a systematic suppression of enemy air defense's SEAD campaign, utilizing a clever combination of low-cost drone swarms to saturate and expose Russian radars. Ukraine has followed up with devastating strikes using Western-supplied ATACMS tactical ballistic missiles and Storm Shadow air-launched cruise missiles. The primary targets have been Russia's top-tier air defense assets, the S-400 Triumph, the S-300, and the Pantsir S-1 point defense systems. According to verified open-source intelligence and Ukrainian General Staff reports, dozens of radar arrays and launcher batteries have been permanently neutralized across the peninsula. This multi-layered approach aligns with the doctrine articulated by retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commander of United States Army Europe. General Hodges has long maintained that Ukraine does not need to launch a bloody frontal assault to liberate Crimea. Instead, the golden rule of this operation is total isolation followed by operational strangulation, a strategy he terms making the peninsula unlivable for Russian forces. According to Hodges's military doctrine, the first and most critical move is to permanently sever the Jankoy node and eradicate the Kerch Bridge. Jankoy is the nerve center of Crimea's entire railway infrastructure. In Russian military logistics, rail transport is everything. If Ukraine can capture Jankoy or permanently hold it under heavy artillery fire, the eastern and western defensive fronts of the peninsula will collapse simultaneously due to lack of supply. The second phase of the Hodges doctrine involves turning the peninsula into a giant tactical trap. Once isolated, the massive Russian garrison, estimated to be between 40,000 and 60,000 troops, becomes a liability rather than an asset. These troops require hundreds of tons of food, water, fuel, and medical supplies daily. With the Kerch Bridge destroyed and the rail line severed, the garrison will be forced to consume its reserves. This is where precision weapons like ATAC EMS play their true role. They are held in reserve not for frontline skirmishes, but to penetrate deeply buried, reinforced ammunition bunkers and fuel reservoirs with metric precision. When a garrison realizes that no food is coming, no ammunition is arriving, and their command centers are being obliterated from above, the psychological will to fight disintegrates. General Hodges envisions a scenario where a massive trapped Russian force is forced to raise the white flag of surrender, not because they were overwhelmed by sheer numbers, but because they were starved of the ability to wage war. Yet, if you listen to the political rhetoric coming out of Moscow, you would encounter a bizarre alternate reality. Recently, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov publicly dismissed Ukraine's strategy to isolate Crimea, mocking the plan and claiming he could not understand how Kyiv could achieve such an objective. Let us analyze the raw numbers and the current Russian order of battle inside Crimea to see exactly what Ukraine is up against. The estimated 40,000 to 60,000 Russian personnel currently stationed on the peninsula are not primary assault troops. They are predominantly defensive garrison units, logistics personnel, and internal security forces. The core defensive framework relies on the 32nd Army Corps and the 126th Coastal Defense Brigade. These units are supported by Rosgvardia, Putin's National Guard, and remnants of naval infantry. On paper, this looks like a formidable defensive force. On the ground, however, these units are under immense strain. Recognizing the growing threat of a Ukrainian amphibious operation, the Russian command has ordered intensive fortification work along the entire coastal strip. Ukraine's multi-domain pincer operation has officially brought the conflict to a critical threshold. Kyiv has built a highly realistic operational foundation for a ground assault by systematically blinding Russian air defense, clearing the Black Sea of Russian warships, and cutting down the logistics arteries. This is no longer a traditional attritional frontline slugfest. It is an asymmetric masterclass in modern siege warfare. As the summer campaign progresses, the definitive question is no longer if Ukraine can strike Crimea, but how long the isolated Russian garrison can survive before its logistical and psychological breaking point is reached. The unsinkable aircraft carrier has taken on water, and the clock is ticking for the Kremlin's forces in the south. What are your thoughts on this escalating campaign? Can Ukraine successfully execute this high-stakes ground assault once the isolation phase is complete, or will Russia find a way to break the stranglehold? Let us know your detailed tactical analysis in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next briefing.